This is the 16th bald eagle that we've admitted to the Wildlife Center so far this year. And if you had have gone back about 15, 20 years ago, we would have been receiving or admitting approximately 5, 6 birds, bald eagles per year at that point. Last year we had 40 bald eagles admitted to the center, many of them coming down from the eastern portions of Virginia. And that's changing a little bit. We're getting more and more birds that are coming in a little bit further and further west. The Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries did a survey this year where they actually went up a lot of the inland rivers, up the James, up the York, up the Shenandoah, the Potomac, and went further and further west than they've ever gone before to actually have a look for bald eagle nests. And they're finding more and more and more of these. I believe there are several hundred actually that were found this year. And that's going all the way up into the Shenandoah Valley, which traditionally, at least in the last 50, 60 years, that's not been a nesting region for these birds. So the majority of the bald eagles that we tend to get still come from this region, mostly because of the habitat. The fisheries and the fish populations are fantastic in these regions, and the bald eagles really do thrive here. It's a very interesting ecosystem where you have bald eagles from all the way up New England and into eastern Canada coming down and wintering here in the Chesapeake area, and then birds from Florida coming up as well. And so there's it's a really neat blending of populations, and this time of year you wouldn't have to walk too far along some of these beautiful shorelines before you start finding these eagles' nests. And as many people I'm sure here know, with the camera, the webcam down at the Norfolk Botanical Gardens, those birds, the young birds are starting to fledge. They're out on their own now, and so many of the birds in a lot of the nests from around the state are doing the exact same thing. And so a lot of birds are starting to travel. The territorial sort of behavior exhibited by a lot of the older birds, the adult birds that are nesting, is starting to go down a little bit as the juveniles start to sort of expand their wings and move into new areas. So this time of year we tend to see more juveniles coming into the center because they do sort of still wander into some of the nesting territories and get into some of the trouble with some of the nesting territorial pairs. But this bird in particular, we were very fortunate to have a number of the team members here today that brought this bird to us and for release. Mrs. West right here was one of the, I guess your husband and yourself actually got him out of the water. This bird was, and correct me if I say anything, I misstate anything here, but my understanding is this bird was found in the water after being attacked by an osprey on the Severn River. And Mrs. West and her husband were fortunate enough to be in the area, go and drag him out of the water. How was that, by the way?
Well, like I said, my husband was out in the yard and saw him when he went in the water, and he was already out in the boat when he called me to tell me to try to get him somebody. So when he got him back to legs with all the stuff down, it was terrible. We had a time getting him in the kennel that we had.
How far away from here?
Well, I'm about 15 minutes from here. That was a question I had. Why to get him released?
Sure, and that could have been another possibility as well. I think we know that bald eagles travel a long distance in a very short amount of time, and so just for the sake of coordinating the amount of people and directions and stuff, it was just easier this way. Oh yeah, this is wonderful.
We watch our eagles on camera.
So after the eagle was picked up out of the water, it was brought to Sarah Streetman here, who is a wildlife rehabilitator in the region. How many birds do you, or animals do you normally typically rehab a year?
Well, he's my 4th eagle, but somewhere around about 100. But I am state licensed for mammals, deer, fox, raccoon, river otter, my favorite, bobcat babies. I don't do possums and bunny rabbits. I take them, but I do the more highly developed brains of the mammal world. And I do hawks, owls, eagles, songbirds, waterbirds, shorebirds, seabirds.
Wonderful. That's pretty much everything, yeah.
Thank you.
So my understanding is after you did your initial physical exams and such on this bird, it went to the countryside veterinary clinic?
Yes, we took him there. I received him from them late in the afternoon, almost dark. And then he was at the vet's the next day, checked out. Had several, like what you might call osprey ticks on his body. He was a little stressed, mouth open, breathing deeply. So we're trying to keep him as quiet as we could. The vet kind of wanted him to be released, and I said, no way. This bird has been called in. I mean, I call in within a half an hour of receiving an eagle. That's the Steph Cooper even married, you guys, getting it all ready for the bird to get on the road. And the transporter that travels him is right here. She's one of the transporters for the Wildlife Center, and I use her. Gail Clendenin, Chris Clendenin, and so I met her in West Point after arranging the transport, and she's one of the Wildlife Center's usual transporters.
Definitely.
So we transferred him to her at the Hardee's in West Point. He moved on to Waynesboro.
And moved on to Waynesboro. Well, when we got the bird at Waynesboro, we did our physical exam as well and found very similar results with this guy. He did have some wounds on his wing, probably from the osprey, either from the talons or from the beak. And this is a typical behavior that eagles and ospreys have out in the wild. What ends up happening is the eagle will get too close to the osprey nest, and the ospreys don't like it too much, so they'll start dive bombing the eagle, trying to get the eagle away. And the other finding we found was the wrist was rather swollen, and that could have been again from a talon puncture. And so we ended up giving the eagle some antibiotics, some anti-inflammatory drugs to get the swelling down. And after that, we gave it basically supportive care. There were no major life-threatening injuries on this bird, which is always a good thing. And I guess the other thing I should tell you is that this was the second bird that we entered into a brand new study that we're conducting at the Wildlife Center. We're part of a team of rehabilitators from across the country right now that is looking at lead in bald eagles, in swans, in loons, and in vultures. And I believe there's about 20 to 25 different rehabilitation centers across the country doing this. It's being coordinated by the Minnesota Raptor Center in St. Paul. And basically for the next year, we're going to be taking a small amount of blood, just about 1 cc of blood, very small amount, and taking it from these birds that come into the center, every bird that comes in of those species, and we have a machine actually at the clinic that will measure the amount of lead in the blood. And luckily, this bird was pretty much negative. It was in fact below the threshold that the machine could even register. So that's wonderful news. But we're going to be doing this for the full year. We're going to be looking at all of those species, looking at the blood, the trends in the lead levels. Typically, they do go up around in the fall and in the winter months, both here in Virginia as well as across the country. And we're actually trying to document that just to make sure that it gets into the literature, and so the decision makers can have a look at those levels and say, is this appropriate or is this not appropriate? But up until this point, there hasn't been a coordinated effort to do that. So this bird was the second bird that we've actually entered into that study, and we'll be doing that for the next year. And so we took the blood from this bird. At that point, we moved them out to one of the smaller outdoor enclosures that we have at the center. And that's just to get the bird accustomed to being in captivity. It's not, I mean, the bird right now was in a crate about the size of a dog crate. I mean, it is a dog crate. And we put it actually in a larger crate, or a larger enclosure, probably 12 feet by 12 feet by 15 feet or so. And it stayed there for about a week. It came in to us, I believe found on June 9th, and we had it either on the 9th or the 10th. And after that point, we basically let him sort of chill out. His wounds were sort of, we monitored the wounds. They were healing beautifully. The swelling went down on the wrist, and then we moved the bird into a larger flight pen where we could assess how the bird could fly. And it probably took, I'm going to say 4 or 5 days before the bird actually decided that it wanted to go back and forth from perch to perch in this large flight pen on its own without having somebody try to go in there and sort of encourage it. And, but after 4 or 5 days, the bird was going back and forth and back and forth. And the nice thing is, because it was with us for such a short period of time, there was no major rehabilitation or physical therapy that we needed to conduct in order to get this bird back out into a releasable state. A lot of the eagles that we get have broken wings and things that require extensive physical therapy after the wound is healed. Just imagine yourself with a broken leg and you're in a cast. Once you come out of that cast, your leg muscles have atrophied or have gotten much smaller because they haven't been used. Same thing happens with these birds. If their wing is in some kind of bandage or a cast, and they're not moving that wing, then typically what happens is the muscles will start to atrophy, and they're not going to be able to fly as well. So that's why it's really important to have a really large flight pen, so that you can encourage them to go back and forth and build those muscles up so that they have a better chance of surviving once they're released back out into the wild again.